I'm Lois Kolkhorst, State Senator for SD 18. I know we were talking about how I got here, right? So, spent 14 years in the Texas House, mostly a rural lawmaker. I've had Walker County, Huntsville in my district, and parts of Bryan College Station at different times through redistricting. But ran for Glenn Hager's seat when he was elected comptroller in November. Then he stepped down. He was in the middle of his Senate term, and that was a special election that won in December 6th. So I want to say welcome to all of you. It's great to see you here, and really love working with Texas Young Republicans. And I was looking at your agenda here on different items that y'all are supporting, and I can say that we're lockstep together. So I'm going to hit on a couple of the big issues, looking down at some of the bills that y'all picked out that are, focused bills, not the big ones. What we talk about here are the big bills, like the Senate and the Senate SB2, which became HB1, SB1, lowering property taxes, things like that. Those are the big issues. But I really like that y'all focus down on some that are very specific. I was looking at SB, which one was it? SB 1530, which removes the civil offense for leaving a running motor vehicle unattended when that vehicle is either on private property or started remotely. And I voted for that bill just yesterday in transportation. So my big news today is that I was just named to the conference budget. I really am shocked about being a freshman senator, being named to the conference is a big deal. I did it twice in the House, so that part is experience, and that's something I want to kind of relay to y'all as young people, as you're out in the work world and you're making your mark. Is my reputation here is I'm known to be a hard worker, that I really just work tirelessly, and I will tell you that I hire people that I demand that from, and I demand it from myself. And that reputation is why I'm on the conference committee. It really is. That's how I got to the Senate Finance Committee as a freshman. So if you take nothing else away today, I want to tell you that I have a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old. And I tell them all the time, if you'll just say yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, and no sir, which means show respect and work really hard, you will go so very far. You will go so very far. If you decide to own your own company, you will work hard or you'll go broke. If you're working for someone else, the harder you work, the more that you will be rewarded. And I'm truly convinced of that. So humbled by Governor Patrick's appointment today. Matt told me I was going to talk a little bit about private property rights. I want to talk about that, and then a couple other things. But private property rights is one of the tenets of our freedoms. Going back to how we were formed as a nation. If you go to other nations, it's very hard. You have to be the wealthiest of the wealthy to own land. You don't even get the opportunity to own land. Here in America, we own our own land. But the way to take land away from the people is either by taxing it and to where it's not affordable anymore, or two, is to take it through the power of the government, which is eminent domain authority. So I have been working for a long time on trying to get more private property rights in statute. I have a bill this session, Senate Bill 474, which says if an entity, keep in mind that according to a comptroller's report, we have over 9,000 public and private entities in the state of Texas that have this authority. You should all go, wow, because that's a lot. And so Senate Bill 474 basically says that if the process is that someone comes and says, I'm going to take half of your front yard because we're going to put this pipeline in front of it. And you go, no, I don't want you to take half of my front yard. I don't care. Here's my offer. Take it or leave it. And you go, I don't want to sell. That's not what I want to do. They say, well, I'm sorry, we're going to use our eminent domain authority. I am simplifying this. And they give you the bona fide offer. You have a choice to then take it to court. First, a commissioner's court, a special appointed court, and then finally to district court. if you do that, it takes lawyers, right? It takes legal representation. Sometimes that cost, I know citizens say, oh, I just have to take this offer because if I don't, then I'm going to spend a whole lot in legal fees and I end up losing even more money if I do that. So Senate Bill 474 basically says if you go to court and you get more than 120% of the initial offer that they made you, they have to pay your legal fees. So what does that do? It empowers you to say, I know you're wrong, I'm going to take you to court, and in the end, when I'm right, I don't have all those legal fees that have cut into it. It also impels our eminent domain authorities to make a better initial offer. It incentivizes them to come with an initial, the bona fide offer being higher and probably truer to your value. So those are the kind of bills that we're working on. The House and the Senate, the good news is we're squabbling over which tax relief package we're going to do. Now, not often does that happen, so that means we're going to put money back into the pockets of all of our citizens in the state of Texas. Why are we going to do that? We have a surplus. So we can either build bigger government with surpluses, or we can give money back. We are going to make investments in infrastructure. I'm looking at some of your issues here on highways and how we rid ourselves of congestion. Congestion is a quality of life issue. It's also a productivity issue for us. And so, you know, we've made in the Senate bill, which is why we'll go to conference. The conference works out the difference between the Senate and the House on what the budget should look like. Then we come out with something that we've agreed to as 5 conferees on the House side, 5 conferees on the Senate side, and then we end up bringing it back to both chambers and hopefully getting a favorable vote. Looking at other things, immigration. The Senate has over $800 million in border security as we look at what we're seeing in human and drug trafficking being one of the top issues. Life and abortion, I love that y'all have that there. I'm carrying some of those bills. Firearms, obviously, Second Amendment. We've got a package of bills that have been passing. I passed a bill yesterday that had to do with suppressors and a local way that they were actually denying people when they applied to try to get suppressors and some other NFA items. Marijuana and drugs, I want to talk to y'all. I'm going to ask y'all a question about that. I support traditional marriage and civil liberties and local control. I just voted against a body cam bill, but I only voted against it because it didn't give local control. So the cities and counties that have already implemented body cams, I want to make sure that the state doesn't dictate to them what their policies are. And I could not get comfortable with Senator West. I just couldn't get comfortable. I was trying. And his answers were a bit elusive, and the language in the bill is more elusive than I want it to be. And so I think that we'll work on trying to get that better as it moves to the House and eventually get that back to a positive vote. So let me ask y'all, marijuana and drugs. It says a check mark. What does that mean?
Our policy committee, we took a survey of all of our members, and our policy committee met to discuss it on numerous occasions. And we are, the vast majority of us are in favor of some sort of decriminalization or lessening of penalties or whatever for marijuana specifically. And personally, I think we should just legalize it.
Okay, I can't quite get there with y'all yet. I'm leaning toward potentially, I know that there is a form of marijuana that is medicinal, oil. And I've met with some folks that think that there's some real benefit to that, and I am open to that idea. But all out marijuana in Texas, I'm a little old fashioned. I'm 50 now, so I just can't get there. But I'm respectful. We're going to continue to debate that. But I know that the oil, I'm kind of leaning toward that.
I was wondering if you could share your opinion from. I just want to know where you come from on the decriminalization standpoint, not the legalization, but where your stance comes that you think that is okay for something like that.
Well,
For use, not for small amounts of use.
Yeah, small amounts of use, I don't have a real problem with. You know, what I have a problem with sometimes is small amount of use, not always, but in some cases, lead people to, when they have a drug habit, then they do other criminal activity.
And then you arrest them for that criminal activity.
Yeah, what's that?
And then you arrest them for that criminal activity.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Senator, would you be willing to rule out jail time as a punishment for small?
Say that real loud again.
Rule out jail time as a punishment for possession of small amounts. That's also the position that our organization came from.
Yeah, I'm willing to listen about that. You know, one of the things that kind of is troubling to me is, you know, on our border security issues, the amount of tolerance that we're seeing allowed at the checkpoints, and we're still working on, working to get all the details of that, but, you know, what is an allowable amount? And is that, you know, in ways of legalizing it? You know, we can sit here and debate that in ways. You know, you can talk about marijuana, you can talk about opioid use, you know, the Schedule II drugs, what we've seen with Vicodin and what is that called? Yeah, that and other things. We've got a lot of drug abuse out there that's, you know, as troubling as potential large uses of marijuana. So we'll keep working on it. I mean, I'm one of the few people maybe you've ever met that I really have never tried marijuana. So, you know, and I had friends, you know, in college that certainly did. Just wasn't my deal. Just is the way it is for me.
What's the problem with the medical marijuana stuff, though? That has nothing to do with
The oil?
However, whatever forms it comes in, just to be used specifically for medicinal purposes.
So California's done that, and in ways it was a legalization. I mean, it was pretty hard to prosecute otherwise, and so that's my hesitation on that is you know, basically you are legalizing it. I'm very interested in the oil, the use of the oil. I have some folks that have epilepsy and have talked to me about it.
Have you looked? There's documentaries on that too.
I actually had a hearing on medicinal marijuana as the chair of public health last year, so I got to sit through about 6 hours of my own documentary. And it was, you know, it was definitely very interesting. Cannabis, you know, learned a lot about it and the purposes that it could and couldn't be used for. So, you know, again, I know this is an issue for young people, and I continue to listen. In process. I don't think it'll happen in this session, but eventually.
You know, I personally appreciate the fact that you're open to listening. You know, I think a lot of people have their own to help. And I think it's probably fair to say that the organization doesn't support drug use. Our goal is not to see using marijuana. I think the concern that most people have is just that we don't want to see people's lives ruined. You know, you get caught smoking a joint, and now you have a criminal record, can't get a job.
I hear you.
I think that's probably the concern.
And, you know, similar, you have to be sensitive to alcohol use as well.
Yeah.
When you have a minor in possession, when you have a DUI, DWI, public intoxication. You know, one of the things that we have to look at is what do laws do? Do they protect the innocent? And how, you know, I'm really, the older I get, looking very inwardly about liberties. And here's the last thing I'm gonna leave you guys with. I grew up in a world that didn't have these. And when they were first introduced, there were bag phones. You know, it was a big deal when I was working at TCU, and I kind of made it to the point on the athletic staff where I got a bag phone, and that was a big deal. I was told only use it if you have car trouble, right? And so my children are living in a completely different age. You are all living in a completely different age. I remember when we were writing research papers and doing any kind of research, she actually had to go to the library at TCU. Really, truly, had to go get books. I walked in the library the other day and I said, look, my great-grandchildren won't even know what those are. They'll be, you know, antiques sold, like there won't be any books left, right? Because my iPad's in here and that's where I do most of my reading. But here's the thing I want to tell you. I want you to remember this. Be sure to protect your liberties. The tracking of you, the patterning of your buying habits, everything. And my children see it as kind of a convenience. Oh, that's really cool, Mom. Starbucks popped up. They're going to be conditioned like that. But let me tell you that we have to be careful the information we give to controlling forces. And when I said it usually comes in the form of government, right?
1984.
Yeah. Okay, so I had my children watch Schindler's List the other night with me. Anybody ever see Schindler's List?
Mhm.
I mean, ever? Hmm? I don't like that movie. You know why? Because it is uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable. I remember watching it in the movie theaters, and I never watched it again until the other night when I made me and my children sit down. I don't like movies like Divergent. I don't like movies like The Hunger Games, right? But watching the Schindler's List, it reminded me that people that were in those concentration camps are still alive today. When my kids realized that, and they thought, oh, that happened in the 1700s. No, children that were in those concentration camps are still alive today, some of them. They couldn't, we really talked about it for days afterwards. And to think that a government cannot, and we see this in other parts of the world, of how government controls people's behaviors, people's thoughts, what they do, what they don't do, what they become, you're going to be a nurse, you're going to be a teacher, you're going to be a laborer, right? So that's what I want to impress upon you. I don't think it can happen in my lifetime, right? I grew up, my dad served in World War II. Neither Jimmy and I served in the military. We were peacetimes. Not long thereafter, there was the first Gulf War, but it was over in just a few days, right? But we have seen a different kind of warfare. Terror now, different kind of warfare, right? And so I want to impress upon you, don't take for granted what you have today. Please don't take for granted what you have today. And fight for it and debate it. Just like I debated Royce West today. And making sure I'm not against body cams. I think that's a liberty issue for me as a citizen, for our police officers so they can't be accused. But I want to make sure that the government up here in Austin doesn't dictate down to Giddings, Texas, or dictate down to Victoria, Texas. But that the local citizens, if they're paying their own local money, get to make the decisions of how those policies are put in place. So those things are worthy of debate. They really are. Don't take for granted for a moment. And push back when you see the government overtaking you. Push back against when the government wants to take your land. Push back when the government wants to take your firearms. Push back on the liberties given to us by the Constitution of the United States of America. Aside from the Bible, that document ranks up there in the most important. Magna Carta, some of those things. And so that's the last thing that I want to. And we had a great discussion in the members' lounge today. A couple of colleagues and I. And he was looking at a list of bills and goes, all we did was just expand government today. And we argued back and forth on why it was or why it wasn't. That's a good thing that we're arguing. That is a good thing. We do it very politely. I was like, I don't think that's an expansion of government. He goes, yeah, here's why. And you have to think about those things. So that's what I want to impress upon you. These devices are wonderful, but they can be used to track you or manipulate your buying behavior and do other things. Just be sure that you're aware of those things and cognizant of them. And the other thing that I have to tell y'all is take time to communicate like we are today. When I say to my daughter, call Aunt Robin. I don't want to call her. Why not? I don't want to talk to anybody. Text her. Okay, I'll text her, right? And there's value in still being face to face and having that human exchange. So, thank y'all very much. Appreciate it.